welcome back to week 64 of the Producer Diaries. I'm Wavepunk. I got 2 beat battle entries to show you here today, starting off with this one. Tell me what you think. Those of you with astute observation skills will notice it played all the way through to measure 16 here and then looped back around, and like this is kind of where the beginning of measure 2 is where kind of it feels like the right downbeat, the right end of the idea. It was a 16 bar battle. You had to produce in 16 bars at 134 BPM, and I really liked this like pickup at the beginning. I felt like it kind of like drove into this downbeat. If I just started here, it's music with the wrong idea. You want to start with this bom bom ba da da da. It's almost like a pre-drop, but that means that I'm taking a measure of my 16 measures to do a pre-drop, and then really kind of this is measure 1. This is kind of like a pickup, which means I kind of have to do some like weird finagling at the end here. And this is not actually the session I sent in. I bounced this, pulled that master into another session, which I'll show you here in a minute, and then chopped it up. So like almost like DJ chopped my own entry to create a bit more continuity there, to have this end kind of make a little bit more sense. You see that this here says Fart Serum 2. Unfortunately, the sample for this battle was this. It goes on like that for another minute or so. This is a serum preset that one of the members of the Discord made. They gave us the preset and let us mess with it ourselves if we really wanted to. That wasn't what I ended up doing. I think I just took a clip from a specific moment of this sample down here and put a whole bunch of effects onto it. So there was kind of this sound. If I turn off all the effects, I tried chroma at first and then thought literally everybody's going to put chroma on this because it's such a atonal sort of sound. That's what it sounds like by default. It is, I think, a bit quantized as well. No, the quantize is off. I thought I messed around with quantizing it. Then put a tremolo on it. Kind of a mild tremolo. The shaper box, I think, is probably doing the majority of the work here. Put a dotted eighth kind of rhythm on it. And then some drive as well to bring it up with some distortion. I just literally just hand automated that in, just drag those around and created just some movement in the frequencies and then some OTT. Which really brings it all up to life there. And then took that and chopped that up into this. And that digga digga digga, so like that, this starts to sound musical at that point. We're kind of getting somewhere. The track for a long time didn't have this ostinato you hear, this kind of tremolo sound. I found this like really late, probably was like 15 minutes left in the battle. Without this, you know, it's not bad, and it's very, very focused on the sample, but this was just so much more musical to kind of put this ostinato over the top. And it creates something where for us to go, where over here it's a 5-note ostinato. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then over here on the second drop, we go up to 6 notes. Which does make that ostinato actually loop slower, but because it's going to a higher note, it sounds it just sounds like it's kind of a building of energy, and it really kind of created a nice punchiness. I just realized I had the sub turned off there for a bit, but you get the idea. But as I told you at the beginning, I didn't actually just send in that bounce. I took the master, pulled it in here, and then chopped up the end, as well as a middle bit here a few times. Kind of like literally just did a master take, put a little bit of extra tails and stuff like that to help kind of bring it together, and it came out like this. little chops like that, and then especially at the end is very different. And that helped it turn into the next beat battle entry. This one got me an orange in the beat battle, which is good. That means you earn some points. I also did a little bit of extra compression over here. I just brought up the gain. You can see on this sample it says that there's no gain increase, but over here there's a decibel of gain increase. This spot was just... That spot was just quieter because I took out the sub in that spot, so we kind of pulled it up so it matched the rest of it. And then just did some extra clipping, some extra... shape. No, the shaper box is just an oscillator. I was just looking at it. But yeah, did a little bit of extra. Just really trying to drive it, make it loud. This came out pretty well. Our second beat battle entry did not earn us points, and I am proud of it. It's probably the best bass music I've made, and really was a good step in learning about bass music, because I made some mistakes here that I think I will be excited to not make again in the future. This is what it sounds like. Honestly, listening back to it right now, it sounds better than I remember it sounding. It does have a nice good punch on the low end. It is maybe too woofy though. I just kind of kept, I said, you know what, instead of being afraid of redlining, which has always been a thing for me, or being afraid of it like distorting, I just put the clipper on there and let it do its thing, or let it really go to work. And then, you know, looked at it in the oscilloscopes and stuff like that, and just looked at it in the span, and like, I just wanted to make sure that the sub down here was the highest frequency. It sounds, it's pretty high. The only other one that's high is this kind of middle, that middle frequency there, that third, kind of up an octave third, this guy. Which is maybe higher than I would usually put it if I were to like be mixing this just for myself, but that was the sample. Was this literally a vibrator, and I wanted it to stand out, so hopefully get a few extra points for using the sample well. I don't know if Bishu noticed that was the sample, but it doesn't matter. Honestly, these basses, these sounds combine pretty well. There's some cool stuff going on there, and this guy in particular, I was proud of. It's a really distorted saw wave. I have the tube distortion warp turned all the way up, and then I'm just automating in this phase distortion from this up an octave and 4 semitones sine wave that's going through some pretty insane levels of distortion, some compression, an equalizer there. This is the automation for that motion you hear. It moves that notch. It also moves the phase distortion over here. And then I'm kind of mirroring that same motion in this Pro Q4 here with this high cut. And we're also taking all the bass out, or all the, like the sub frequencies out of this, because we're adding those back in with this much cleaner sub here. So if you watch this, this is what this bass sounds like. But then that gets bolstered up by this guy, which is by itself just, oh, so warm in my ears. And if you don't have headphones or a big diaphragm speaker, you don't hear anything there at all. But you put those two together, and you get a good bass going on, and then you put this guy over the top of it, and it's, you know. But I created a few other little pockets too for some one-shots and stuff. This, I believe, this one-shot was a Serum preset. Yeah. I was also really proud of this guy down here, which you probably didn't notice on the first listen through. Following a technique from Virtual Riot where he just demonstrated using Ableton's kind of quantization features to turn any Foley kind of sounds in your house into musical sounds. I was like, I think I could do that in Logic. And so this is just me jingling my keys up against a cardboard box. This is the original down here. If I turn off all the processing, this is just me making sounds. This is already quantized. I don't know, can I turn off the quantization? Or it doesn't read as quantized weirdly, even though it very much is. I probably bounced it already. But then just some OTT, a tremolo, some Pro Q, some shaper boxing on it to make it more. And just took spots from that and flipped those into the things you hear up here. I really like that ching 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 da 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 da. I thought that was a pretty cool little rhythm. I also tried to make some sort of like, there's those basses that kind of go kind of sort of sounds over the top of them. I tried to like kind of mimic that rhythmic sound, even though there's no kind of tonality to this. Which I think is from that same keys sample. Honestly, I felt like the drums were really, really strong this whole. Like that's sick. I might just bounce that and use that sometimes for something else. I was constantly in this battle trying to rage against like how punchy the drums sound. That kick sounds so good. Then you unmute everything. And it sounds okay, but you're losing all the space it's in, which is what gives it a lot of its dimensionality. And part of that's because of the bass. You know, if I mute the sub, a lot of that comes back. I don't know if there's a way to get around that. I am literally blasting this as loud as possible. This is up 6 dB. If I pull this down, to get some of it back. And I sent this to some friends and asked them their thoughts, and a lot of them were like, your bass is so loud that it is destroying any room for detail in the high end, which if you think about it, like your bass waves, or just even look at it here in the oscilloscope. You're like all the small details have to somehow fit into this, you know, with like it wiggling up and down as it goes, and because it's just such a pervasively, it's like making a really fine dish and then just dumping a ton of ginger on top of it, and it's like you're not gonna all you're gonna taste is ginger. So all the fine details of everything else is kind of getting washed out there by the bass. So there's this fine line you have to strike in bass music of how do I make my low end strong while also having there be other details, you know. And if you're playing in like a bass club, you can make a mix where it's like this is literally just for the subs and this is for everything else, and that helps to have separate speakers. But for most of us, where there's one speaker making all the sounds, you got to be a bit more careful. So learning how to do bass music, having some fun, and yeah, that's all we had time for this week. Thanks so much for watching. See you guys next week. Bye-bye.